The wind howled across the open plains of New Mexico, carrying with it the scent of sagebrush and dust, the kind that stuck to your throat and tasted like the earth itself. The sun was slipping behind the mountains, staining the sky with crimson and gold, and somewhere between that dying light and the deepening dusk rode a man named Luke Callahan, a cowboy with calloused hands, a broken heart, and 2 little girls waiting for him back at the ranch he built with his own sweat and pain. Luke had been alone for 5 years. His wife, Sarah, had died giving birth to their second daughter, and ever since, he'd lived like a ghost wandering through the land. He rose before dawn, worked till dark, and spoke to the horses more than he did to people. The neighbors called him Silent Luke. Others said he was still talking to the spirit of his dead wife. But the truth was simpler. He just didn't know how to live without her. Every night, after tucking in his daughters, Emma and Grace, he'd sit on the porch with a bottle of whiskey, staring at the stars. He never cried, not once, but the pain was there, behind his eyes, in the set of his jaw, in the way his shoulders slumped when no one was watching. That evening, as the wind whistled through the grass, Luke heard the sound of distant hooves. He frowned, leaning forward in his chair. His daughters had gone to visit the nearby town of Red Mesa earlier that morning with the neighbors. It wasn't like them to stay out so late. He stood, brushed the dust from his jeans, and walked toward the fence. 2 small figures appeared first. His daughters, their long braids bouncing as they rode side by side. But between them rode someone else. A tall figure wrapped in a faded blanket, dark hair flowing in the wind, the face half hidden beneath a wide-brimmed hat. Luke's heart skipped. The closer they came, the clearer the stranger became. A woman, maybe in her mid-20s, skin kissed by the sun, eyes sharp as a hawk's, and a calmness in her face that seemed to silence the world around her. "Pa!" cried Emma, the older daughter, as she jumped off her horse and ran toward him. "Pa, you won't believe what happened." Before he could answer, Grace, the younger one, chimed in breathlessly, "We found her. She saved us, Pa. She saved us from a rattlesnake." Luke looked from one girl to the other, then finally turned his gaze to the woman who had dismounted quietly and stood a few paces back. She didn't speak, just watched him, her eyes steady, unreadable. "Name's Niley," Emma said proudly. "She's Apache. She lives out by the canyon." Luke's jaw tightened. Apache. The word came out rougher than he intended. He'd grown up in a time when the border between settlers and tribes was drawn in blood. Even though the wars had mostly ended, the fear hadn't. Niley spoke softly, her voice low but clear. "Your daughters were in danger. I helped them." Luke nodded slowly, unsure what to say. Gratitude and old prejudice wrestled inside him. He was a man who'd seen too much loss to hate easily, but he'd also lost a brother in one of the raids years ago. "Thank you," he said at last, his voice strained but sincere. "You're welcome to rest a while, if you need." Niley gave a faint nod, as if she'd expected no kindness and was surprised to find some. That night, as the stars came out, she sat at their table quietly eating stew with the girls while Luke stayed mostly silent. But his daughters, oh, they were taken with her. Grace asked about the feathers in her hair. Emma wanted to hear stories of the canyon and the spirits of the mountains. And for the first time in years, laughter filled the small wooden house again. Luke listened from the corner, pretending to fix his saddle gear, but really, he was listening to her voice, calm, melodic, full of a strange warmth that made the house feel alive. Later that night, after the girls had gone to bed, Niley stood to leave. "Thank you for food," she said softly, wrapping the blanket tighter around her shoulders. "I'll go. It's dark," Luke said gruffly. "You can stay in the barn if you want. Safer that way." She hesitated, then nodded once. "Thank you, Luke Callahan." He didn't remember telling her his name. Somehow, she already knew. When dawn broke, he found her outside helping Emma fetch water. She worked with quiet grace, her movements fluid and sure. The horses seemed calm around her, too, even the stallion that no one else could approach. Over the next few days, she stayed longer than planned. The girls begged her to teach them how to weave grass bracelets, how to track animals, how to listen to the land. Luke watched from a distance, torn between gratitude and unease. She didn't ask for money, didn't ask for food. She just helped, and smiled when the girls laughed. But one evening, something changed. The sheriff came riding up the dirt road, dust swirling around his boots as he dismounted. "Luke," he called out, his face grim. "You got company from the Apache side, don't you?" Luke's stomach tightened. "She saved my girls," he said evenly. "That's all." "Well, there's talk," the sheriff muttered, spitting into the dirt. "Some folks say an Apache woman's been seen near Red Mesa. They think she might be part of that group that took cattle last month. I'm not saying it's true, but people are scared. You best be careful who you bring round your place." Luke felt the old tension in his chest. He'd spent years building peace, keeping his ranch out of trouble. The last thing he needed was whispers of harboring someone the town feared. When the sheriff left, he turned to find Niley standing in the doorway. She had heard everything. "If you want me gone," she said quietly, "I will go." He looked at her, really looked at her. The sadness in her eyes wasn't fear. It was the pain of someone who had heard those words all her life. "No," he said finally. "You stay as long as you need. My girls like you. That's reason enough." That night, as the fire crackled, Niley told him the truth. Her tribe had been driven from their land 2 years ago. Many of her people were killed or scattered. She'd been living alone near the canyon, surviving off what little the desert gave. "I had a sister once," she whispered. "She died when the soldiers came. Since then, I speak to the wind. It listens better than men." Luke felt something shift inside him, something he hadn't felt in years. He saw not an Apache, not a stranger, but a soul as lost and scarred as his own. Days turned into weeks. Niley became part of their lives in quiet ways, mending fences, tending the garden, teaching the girls songs in her language. And Luke found himself looking forward to seeing her each morning, though he never admitted it aloud. One night, a storm rolled over the plains. Lightning split the sky, and thunder shook the ground. A wild horse broke loose from the corral, and Luke ran out into the rain to catch it. Niley followed without hesitation. Together they fought through the mud and wind, finally cornering the terrified animal. When it was done, they stood there, soaked, breathing hard, eyes locked under the storm's fury. Something unspoken passed between them, a recognition, a pull. The storm faded into silence, and for a heartbeat, the world held its breath. But before anything could be said, the girls came running out, calling for them. And whatever was about to happen was swallowed by the night. The next morning, Luke found a carved wooden charm hanging on the porch, an Apache symbol for protection. Niley had made it for the ranch. But peace never lasted long on the frontier. A few days later, men from town came riding up again, angry, armed, and loud. They claimed an Apache raid had taken place the night before. They'd found tracks leading toward Luke's land. The leader, a man named Harris, shouted, "We know she's here, Callahan. That woman's been feeding information to her tribe." Luke stepped forward, his jaw set. "She's done nothing wrong. She's one of them." Harris spat. "You gonna protect her over your own kind?" Luke's hands tightened around his rifle. "She saved my daughter's lives. That's all I need to know." The standoff lasted only a minute, but it felt like an eternity. Then, without warning, Harris raised his gun. The girls screamed, and before Luke could react, Niley stepped in front of him. The bullet grazed her shoulder. She fell to the ground, clutching the wound as Luke fired a warning shot into the air, shouting for the men to leave. They did, but not before promising to come back. He carried her inside, his hands trembling. She tried to smile through the pain. "You shouldn't have done that," she whispered. "I couldn't let them hurt you," he said hoarsely. "Not you." Her eyes searched his, and in that silent moment, something changed forever. The lonely cowboy and the exiled Apache woman, both broken by loss, both haunted by the past, had found each other in the middle of a world that didn't want them to. Outside, the rain began to fall again, soft and steady. Inside, Luke held her hand for the first time, and neither of them spoke, because sometimes, silence says everything. Rain fell softly through the night as Luke sat beside Niley's bed, watching her breathe. The storm outside faded, leaving only the crackle of fire and the quiet sound of her heartbeat. When her eyes opened, she smiled faintly. "You stayed," she whispered. Luke nodded, his voice low. "I ain't letting go this time." In that fragile silence, something deep healed inside both of them, the kind of peace only found after years of pain. Outside, the dawn rose golden over the plains, and for the first time, Luke felt the future calling his name.